Welcome to the Full FX Unfiltered, and this edition is in association with Caplin, and I'm delighted to be joined by John Ashworth, who is CEO of Caplin. And John, this is going to be an unfiltered video with a bit of a difference because I'm actually not going to ask you a question in this one, just to just to put you, at ease.
Thank you, Colin, and I'm very pleased to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Yes. John, the reason we're doing this is because at the recent Full FX event in London, you gave a very, very well-received talk on AI. And interestingly, we got a lot of questions that we didn't have time for. So what I thought I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is have you recount the main points from your TED talk. And I have to say, a lot of people pointed out it's a very impressive effort, 20 minutes on stage with no notes. And I agree with them, of course. But give me the main points of it, and then what I'll do, I'll come to you with the questions that I received on the day that we didn't have time for.
Sure. Well, firstly, thank you for your kind words. It was a fun talk to deliver, and it was great fun to research. I think I, like everybody else in the Western world, it's slightly involved in technology, slightly involved in markets, was or has been confused by AI. It's coming at us from all directions. So it was as much a selfish exercise to try and put a framework around the topic for me to develop my understanding of it. But the talk itself, for those who were there as a recap and for those who weren't, really broke down to 5 areas. Firstly, and strangely, I wasn't talking about AI at all, but talking about industrial revolutions and how society adapts to new technology coming along, disruptive plays on the way we work. AI is being thrown at us from every direction in social media. It's going to solve every single problem in healthcare by next Tuesday. It's going to put us all out of work by next Thursday. So what is the impact, and how has society historically dealt with disruptions? And the conclusion to that is we've been here before. Society adapts remarkably well. There isn't really a doomsday scenario that I see. I think there are all sorts of opportunities, but there are some risks and threats, as there always have been, whether it's turning plowshares into tractors or paint shops in automobile factories into robots and so on and so forth. So that's the first point. The second point is around definitions and why now? What's the big deal in 2023, 2024 about AI? And the conclusion there is, I'm sorry, I don't believe there's a sudden brand new thing called AI. I do believe there's been a continuous development in trends around data analysis and automation ever since the 50s. And it just so happens that the fact that computer science is making computers better at programming themselves to do things, and that computer technology itself, with the arrival of quantum computing, for example, is becoming exponentially more powerful than even Moore's law suggests, delivers 2 points of inflection that make it look like things are developing more rapidly, and therefore there's some major quantum effect that's come along. But actually, as I said earlier, I think AI is and will continue to be on a general continuum of developments around computer science. Then the third thing, we talked a little about generative AI, and it's great fun to put up pictures that have been generated by AI and look at specific examples of text that AI has generated. In the popular domain, ChatGPT is an actor or a resource that lots of people are familiar with. And yeah, it's fun to have Beethoven dressed in the colors of your favorite football club, going shopping in a supermarket. Harder actually to figure out how to monetize those sorts of fun applications. But I think the point here is that given that generative AI is coming up with solutions based on its source data, which is increasingly itself internet and AI generated, we do have a threat of a mean reversion to mediocrity, if you like.
Yeah.
Where the fact that an increasing amount, as I said, is being generated by AI means the large language model, the available content on the internet is increasingly AI generated. So it all kind of morphs into something. And we're seeing this already. Already the quality of content on Twitter or X or rather and other social media platforms, I would argue, is going down. It's almost as if we've run out of decent content. Stuff gets recycled by automated bots, and genuinely new creative stuff as a relative proportion of the content you see is on the decline.
Yeah.
So that's happening. And then the fourth area was we looked at realism. What are the threats around AI? And I hate to say it, but AI does empower bad actors to do bad things. So we will see an increase in fakery. We'll see an increase in cyber attacks. We'll see, I'm afraid, very bad actors finding it easier to engage in bio and chemical terrorism. I think the issue around opacity, how is AI? How are these agents coming up with the answers they're coming up with? Why is my credit application being denied? I think having transparency around that is going to be an important thing. I think there is going to be a social divide where people who get the technology will find it relatively easy to take advantage of it and surf the wave and enjoy productivity that accrues from it. But those who don't get it, I think, are going to be left behind. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, this mean reversion to mediocrity is something that has been underrated and underestimated so far.
Yeah.
Then we looked at some of the positive aspects, and I think there are huge advantages to be had in healthcare, in education, and other applications that we use in our everyday lives, like mapping, for example, and translation. So we're already seeing the benefits, and I think that there are certain sectors where that will continue to apply.
Okay. I think that gives a very good sort of indication of what you were talking about there. So what I will now do, I'll now go to the very intelligent question sent in by our audience. In other words, the ones not made up by me. So the first question I got in was, does AI make it easier or harder for a startup in FX to gain traction? And I guess it's, does this level the playing field question?
I think, well, yes and no. And I think no, if we take the view that AI is not a sudden new thing that's turned up, but an extension and a continuum of automation and availability of technology, I don't think it makes it particularly easier, any more easier than a startup which is enjoying the benefits of automation. The barriers of entry for doing anything have come down.
Yeah.
It depends what the startup on FX is doing. If it's doing basic trading in retail FX, I mean, just like anybody else or anything else, computers are cheaper, data is more available. You can do things in your back bedroom that you couldn't do 5, 10, 15 years ago. So AI per se, I don't think necessarily makes it easier than just the democratization of technology in general. However, the answer is yes, in the sense that private equity funding, venture capital funding for anything that's got an AI label stuck on it makes it easy to generate money. So seed capital for those sorts of ventures, if you could demonstrate some sort of unique attribute or value proposition, and you can associate that with AI, then yes, your life is going to be easier if you're looking to raise money to get your operation underway.
Always comes back to, can you sell someone something, doesn't it?
It does.
The next question, will AI see bigger FX players get bigger and see regional players struggle to compete in markets, which I guess is actually quite a pertinent question for you, given one of your core client bases is in that regional bank space.
Yes, I think to get an advantage out of AI for seeking alpha, looking for trading opportunities and all the rest of it, doing that in a different way than the ways things are currently being done, that is given to the very well endowed in terms of technology and money, but also human skills and intellectual skills and the availability of data to be correlated across a wide number of asset classes. And I think in that sense, those with substantial resources will get better at doing what they're doing. However, the implication of that is, well, does that mean, going back to your question, that the regional players are going to be left behind? Well, some of these applications are going to be democratized. Some of these applications, the availability, we're seeing this with algos already. You're seeing regional banks white labeling algos from bigger players. I think you'll see regional banks white labeling AI analytical capabilities from not necessarily larger banks, but from technology companies that choose to make money doing it. There's a separate issue about why a technology company who is very good at AI-based research would actually sell that research rather than trade the markets based on that research. But that's a separate point.
Yeah.
But I think the regional banks being left behind, bigger banks getting bigger thing, there's a great big gating factor on that, and that's called the credit pyramid. And the fact that the banking structure, as we've said many times before in conferences, is based on a credit pyramid. It's all about relationships. It's about the bigger banks relying on those regional banks to get access to the end consumers, whether those end consumers are individuals spending money on their credit cards or small to medium-sized enterprises looking to, hedge risk or, barely speculate. So I think the credit pyramid has got a bigger effect to play in keeping the regional banks relevant. But yes, long-winded response to the question.
Yeah.
There will be an element of the bigger ones will get bigger and the smaller ones will might be slightly left behind.
Okay, I mean, and I guess actually maybe to your point there as well, but we'll get into the skeptical questions, a couple of skeptical questions now. Is AI really having an impact, or are we really talking about more automation?
I'm definitely in the latter. I think we're talking about more automation.
Yeah. It does strike. I mean, I must admit, it does strike me as that. It's just the next generation of it, isn't it?
And on that point, in any case, there's a huge element of it's incredibly easy to be right when you're forecasting trends in technology, and incredibly difficult to be correct about when you're going to be right. So I can't remember the Bill Gates quote. People underestimate the impact of technology, but overestimate the time which it's going to take to
something like
to
that.
impact.
Yeah. We should learn that one because we say it often enough, don't we? We probably say it wrong every time. But,
yes.
Yes. We'll get to the real optimistic question now. How many of us will have jobs in 5 years' time?
Well, I think if we're awake and we're conscious and we're capable of critical analysis and we can bear relationships with our clients and our employees, I think we'll all still have jobs.
Yeah.
To put it more pointedly, I think if you're a weak marketing analyst or you're a weak salesperson who's relying on a couple of relationships, you're very reactive. You don't come into the office on Monday morning. You're not dialing out. You are going to lose your job because already, although I slightly downplayed the impact of generative AI and things like ChatGPT as there's this mean reversion to mediocrity thing. Unquestionably, for most people, those things are going to be seen as an incredibly intelligent browser. So generating the first draft of a press release, generating a very good idea around how to approach a particular sales situation. The classic morning problem of putting the analyst report together by pulling together sources of data from all over the place. I mean, that will be done at the touch of a button.
Yeah.
And that isn't going to reduce the analyst's role. It's going to enhance the productivity of that analyst. So the good analyst will continue to have an incredibly valuable role to play, but their job will slightly shift away from the mechanical business of data management. The lazy analyst who's doing no better than ChatGPT will definitely lose their job.
And to be honest, that's no different to the way it's been probably for the last 20 years, maybe even 25 years, that if you embrace the change, then you probably will have a job.
Yes. So if you were a very experienced trader on a trading desk and lo and behold, all the traders were disappearing apart from 3 or 4 because everything was going more automated, you were fine if you had a technological aptitude and you knew trading and you were prepared to do a bit of desktop programming, and all of a sudden you're running the algo operation and you're a quant and you're tripling your salary and things wonderful. If, on the other hand, you're an old school trader and you've only ever done spot and you've only ever said mine or yours, your job has shifted somewhat.
Yeah, to become a journalist.
There we go. Perfect example.
You're talking to an example. Our final question we got in actually, which I do think is that I quite like this one actually. Will AI trigger a new wave of innovation in financial markets? If so, where do you think the main areas this will happen will be?
Well, I've touched on one of them already. I think analysts' reports, the morning report, the desk view, that's going to get better and easier, and having to come in at 6:15 to prepare something for the 7 o'clock meeting, that's a thing of the past. That'll be done at the touch of a button. So that's a very practical example. Second area, I think, in FX, I think, and this isn't necessarily AI per se, but just smarter use of data analysis and machine learning, looking at post-trade data and looking at what information nuggets are contained in what our customers have done and what our customers have not done. I think that we'll see interesting work being done there. I mean, the non-bank financials, the super scientific, the super quant orientated ones are going to do things, but I can't talk about that because they're not going to tell me about it. And, we'll not, but there will be new techniques inevitably in seeking trading opportunities and seeking market arbitrage. And I think those are the areas where we're going to see the application. And does it trigger a brand new wave? Well, cautiously, yes, because there'll be more activity and more energy around things that have the word AI in it. But I think those are the areas where the main impact will be seen soonest.
Obviously, I said at the top that the questions weren't coming from me, and obviously I lied because I've got one, inevitably. Just to close out, do you actually think, I mean, you touched on there on the sort of, the bad actor issue or the ethical issue around how AI is going to be used. I need it to be called something different. I'm struggling with my AIs at the moment. But do you actually think we're having enough of a debate within our industry? It's happening more generally, but do you think we're having enough of a debate within our industry about the ethical use of AI and the risks that maybe are associated with bad actors deploying it?
Well, I think the bad actor impact on the industry is going to be in cyber attacks, and it's going to be in deep fakery, not necessarily of identities of people, but possibly around misinformation. So I think the focus on bad actors, as you say, particularly with major elections coming up in the US and the UK and other parts of the Western world, is around fakery, and that's dominating all the attention. I think there's sufficient concern around regulation and compliance for the impact of AI to be catered for by the industry bodies that look at compliance and regulation. And I'm not sure the ethical issues around AI and FX are that well developed yet. So I don't see the threat particularly, other than people nicking money from people's current accounts from, I don't know, some sort of retail trading operation. I don't see that being too great. And also, the answer I gave earlier about jobs will not necessarily be eliminated, but will morph and develop. I think that's the only ethical issue that you would otherwise imagine. And I think most people think of that as we said earlier, general continuum. And if you've got it, you've got it. If you're a smart thinker with critical analysis, you will survive and you will have a job. And if you're not, you won't. It
will certainly be interesting in the next couple of years, that's for sure. Well, John, thank you very much for giving up some more of your time. I mean, we didn't have time for these questions. I'm glad we got them asked because, as always, our audience comes up with much better questions than I do. So thank you. And I look forward to putting you on a stage on your own again with a subject to talk about and just say, go.
Very good. Colin, always good to talk to you. Thank you for your time.
Brilliant. Thanks, John. And thanks everyone for watching, and we'll be back again very soon. Thanks a lot.